I never believed in aliens. Not really. I liked the idea of them the way some people like the idea of winning the lottery. Pleasant background noise while you're stuck in traffic, nothing that would ever interrupt the dull rhythm of real life. My name is Mara Ellison, 34 years old, night shift technician at the Very Large Array in New Mexico. I spent my evenings alone among 30-meter parabolic dishes that listened to the cold murmur of the universe, cataloging radio bursts, and drinking terrible coffee. The sky above the high desert was so clear it felt accusatory, as though the stars were personally offended I paid them so little attention. That changed on the night of October 17, 2024. The anomaly appeared at 2:14 Universal Time coordinated on Dish 12. A repeating pulse, narrowband, 1.42 gigahertz, exactly the hydrogen line. It wasn't random. It was structured. Someone, or something, was modulating the signal like a heartbeat. My first thought was Chinese satellite interference. My second thought was that I was too tired and needed to go home. But the pulse kept going. 142 repetitions, then silence for exactly 9.8 seconds, then another 142. Over and over, like a lighthouse sweeping the desert. I recorded 37 minutes before I called anyone. Protocol said I should have called immediately. Instead, I sat in the dark control room, headphones on, feeling the hair rise on my arms. The signal wasn't just saying, "We are here." It was saying my name. Not in English. Not in any human language. It was encoded in prime number pulses that, when converted to ASCII, spelled MARA over and over again, followed by a string of coordinates that resolved to 8 decimal places, to the exact longitude and latitude of my childhood home in Akron, Ohio. I laughed until I cried. Someone was pranking me. Had to be. Maybe a postdoc with too much time. Maybe my ex-husband being an asshole from 3 states away. I shut the array down, went home to my trailer, and slept for 14 hours. When I woke up, the visitor was sitting on my porch. It looked almost human at a distance. Tall, maybe 2 meters, skin the color of moonlit pearl. No clothes, but no genitals either. The body was smooth, androgynous, elegant. The proportions were wrong in subtle ways. Arms a fraction too long, neck a fraction too slender, head slightly elongated. The eyes were the worst. Solid obsidian, no whites, no pupils, just depth. When it turned toward me, I felt the gaze like a hand sliding under my ribs. It raised one 6-fingered hand in what might have been a wave. I slammed the door, locked it, and called the sheriff. No answer. Cell service dies out here all the time. I stood with my back to the door, hard hammering, waiting for the thing to break in. Minutes passed. Nothing. I risked a look through the blinds. It was still sitting, waiting. Perfectly still, like something carved from moonlight. I don't know how long I watched. Eventually exhaustion won. I sat on the kitchen floor with a shotgun across my knees and waited for sunrise. When the desert turned gold, the visitor stood, walked 10 paces into the empty scrub, and simply vanished. No flash, no sound. One moment there, the next not. That was day 1. Day 2, the signal returned stronger. Every dish in the array locked onto it at once. The modulation now carried a second message, layered beneath my name. When I decoded it, my stomach flipped. I mean you no harm, Mara. I have come 4.37 light years to speak with you alone. Meet me where the dishes point tonight. Come alone, or I will leave forever. 4.37 light years. That number lodged in my throat. Tau Ceti. The star system we've been idly scanning for decades because it was close, quiet, and had planets in the habitable zone. No one had ever found anything there. I should have called Washington. I should have called anyone. Instead, after sunset, I drove my battered pickup to the center of the array, parked beneath the skeletal arms of the dishes, and waited. The air shimmered. The visitor stepped out of nothing, 10 meters away. Up close it was worse. The skin wasn't skin. It moved like liquid mercury caught in a magnetic field, rippling gently. The face had no mouth, only a smooth expanse where a mouth should be. Yet I heard its voice clearly, inside my skull, genderless and calm. Thank you for coming, Mara Ellison. I found my own voice shaking. How do you know my name? I have been listening a long time. That's not an answer. The head tilted. It is the only one I possess that will not frighten you more. I laughed, high and brittle. You miscalculated. No, it said gently. I calculated perfectly. It told me its name was impossible to pronounce with a human throat, so I could call it Lonnie, short for something that translated, roughly, as the one who remembers light. Lonnie was from the second planet of Tau Ceti, a water world wrapped in cloud. Its people, there were millions, had no mouths because they never evolved them. They absorbed energy directly from their sun's particular spectrum and communicated by phased light through the skin. Words were a clumsy approximation. They had detected our radio leakage in the late 1960s. Television, music, war, soap operas, all of it bleeding into space at the speed of light. For decades they listened, fascinated and horrified in equal measure. Then, in 1993, a children's show broadcast from Akron, Ohio reached them. A local access program called Mara's Treehouse. I was 11. I had my own puppet segment for exactly 13 episodes before the station canceled it for low ratings. Lonnie's people fell in love with a lonely little girl who talked to sock puppets about missing her dad. I felt the desert tilt under my feet. You crossed 4 light years because you liked my puppet show. No, Lonnie said. We crossed 4 light years because you taught us hope. Lonnie explained, slowly, patiently, while the dishes creaked overhead in the wind. Their sun was dying, not tomorrow, but soon in stellar terms. In 800 years, the outer atmospheric layers would expand, boiling their oceans. Their civilization had mastered fusion, gravity manipulation, even the folding of space-time in small volumes, but they could not move an entire biosphere. Evacuation required a new home, and every nearby system was either hostile or already claimed by older species who viewed newcomers as vermin. They needed allies. They needed friends. And they had listened to humanity for 60 years and decided we were insane, violent, self-destructive, but also kind. Creative, capable of astonishing forgiveness. They saw everything. Genocide in pop songs, moon landings in reality television, food drives and world wars. And through all of it, threaded like a silver filament, was the memory of a little girl on a 1993 television screen telling a puppet named Mr. Socks that even when you're scared, you can still choose to be gentle. That girl, they decided, might be the bridge. So they built a ship that rode gravitational waves like a surfer rides water. It took 29 of their years, 31 of ours, to arrive. The journey cost them a third of their remaining fissionable material. They could never go home again. And they sent one ambassador. Unarmed. Alone. Me. I sat down hard in the dust. You want me to do what, exactly? Speak for us, Lonnie said. When the time comes, when we reveal ourselves to your world, we will not survive first contact if it begins with fear. You understand fear. You have lived with it all your life. And you chose gentleness anyway. I almost walked away then. I wanted to. The idea was ludicrous. One failed children's host from Ohio as humanity's diplomat to the stars. But Lonnie reached out, not touching me, just extending that impossible hand, and the skin on its palm lit up with moving images. Akron in 1993, my mother's tired smile, my father's empty chair, the way I cried into Mr. Socks after the divorce papers were signed. Every lonely night, every small kindness I'd forgotten I'd ever offered. I started crying in the middle of the VLA, ugly and unstoppable. Lonnie waited. Over the next months we met in secret. I taught it slang. It taught me the physics of their drive, things that made my PhD look like finger painting. I smuggled it into the trailer at night. It slept, or whatever it did, in a corner, dimming its skin to near invisibility. It tasted coffee once and politely declared it an acquired terror. I learned it had a sense of humor, dry and vast as its oceans. I also learned the deadline. They could hide for another 18 months, no more. After that, their power reserves would fail and the ship, hidden in the Oort cloud, would become visible to even amateur telescopes. When that happened, panic or war were almost guaranteed. 18 months to convince the world that the aliens knocking on our door came in peace. I started small. Leaked data. Anonymous papers suggesting the Tau Ceti signal was artificial but non-hostile. Cultivated contacts in SETI. Built a narrative. Lonnie helped. It could forge radio signatures from anywhere on the planet. We made the signal evolve, grow friendlier, broadcast Carl Sagan's old Arecibo message back at us like a cosmic game of catch. The world argued. Some called it hoax. Some called it invasion. A few, quietly, began to hope. Then came the night everything went wrong. A black-budget reconnaissance, drone out of Kirtland, AFB picked up an energy spike from my trailer. They raided at 3 a.m. I woke to flashbangs and men in hazmat suits. Lonnie could have escaped, could have folded space and vanished, but it stood in the center of the living room, hands raised, skin dimmed to dull gray. They shot it anyway. 3 times. Some kind of pulsed plasma round. I screamed until my voice shredded. Lonnie fell. The light in its skin guttered like a candle in wind. They zip-tied me, threw me in the back of a van. I thought that was the end. It wasn't. As the convoy sped across the desert, every light on every vehicle died at once. The engines cut out. The radios screamed with whale song harmonics that resolved, when slowed down, into a single word repeated in 127 languages. Release her. The soldiers panicked. Doors locked from the outside. In the darkness I heard the ship, Lonnie's people, decloaking overhead, silent and continent-sized. They didn't fire. They simply waited. The U.S. government had 18 hours to decide what to do with first contact when the aliens already held all the cards. They let me go at dawn. Apologized. Gave me a phone number that rang the Oval Office. Lonnie survived, barely. The rounds had been designed to disrupt Shields-level energy fields. Against biology, they only bruised. It spent 3 weeks regenerating in a borrowed hangar at White Sands, surrounded by physicists weeping at the mathematics it drew on the walls with one lazy finger. When it could speak again, the first thing it said to me was, "I told you gentleness was the stronger force." 6 months later we went public. I stood on the White House lawn beside a being that looked like liquid starlight, while Lonnie's skin displayed, in real time, live footage of their dying oceans, their children who had never seen night, their last desperate hope. I spoke for 20 minutes. I cried exactly once. The sock puppet stayed in my pocket like a talisman. The world did not react perfectly. There were riots, cults, stock market crashes, but there were also songs, murals, children drawing aliens holding hands with little girls. Treaties were signed, technology shared. Their engineers taught us how to surf gravity. We taught them pizza. Their first ambassadorial delegation arrived wearing mouth prostheses just so they could smile the human way. Lonnie never left Earth. It said the journey home would be wasted when everything it crossed light years to find was standing right here, stubborn and kind and impossibly brave. Sometimes, late at night, we drive back out to the array. The dishes are quieter now. We don't need them to listen anymore. Lonnie stands beneath the New Mexico sky it once only watched through radio, skin cycling slowly through colors no human retina was ever meant to perceive. I ask it, every time, if it regrets coming. It answers the same way. How could I regret finding the voice that taught an entire species to be gentle with the dark? Then it takes my hand, 6 fingers against 5, and we stand together while the desert wind moves through the dishes like breath through the ribs of some vast sleeping animal. And somewhere, 4.37 light-years away, a dying sun keeps burning, a little longer, because someone finally answered its children's call. I still don't know if I'm worthy of being the bridge. But every day, I keep trying to be the girl Mr. Socks believed in. Because the alien who traveled light years to find me refuses to let me be anything less. End.